got to the position where there was a day where everybody got on the bus and I had no money to get on the bus, so I had to walk. All the way to the temple, I walked, knowing what fun they were all having at the temple. Because they got there in about half hour, and it was going to be about 3 hours for me. It was through the backwoods. And so I was getting more and more angry. I was getting furious. And when I came over looking down on the temple, I saw them all laughing. And they were all hanging around Maharaji. And he had obviously spent much more time with them today than any other day. And I was full of loathing and hatred, and I hated myself and felt so impure to even walk into the temple. And I walked in, and by then, they had just, as I came down, they were all, had their lunches. They were sitting on a porch with leaf plates and their food. And I came in, and they might have been talking about me, I don't know, but one of the people who I especially despised came up with a leaf plate of food and offered it to me. Okay. And I took it and I threw it at him. See? I remember the moment very clearly. I mean, it was oh, ha, 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 ha. And I heard Maharaji from across the courtyard. Ramdas. 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 And I looked over at him, and at that moment, I hated him too, right? And I went across the courtyard pissed. I mean, I was really angry, and I sat down in front of him, and I looked up at him, and I was like, you know, I was so, my bones were aching. You know how that gets when you're really constricted. And he looks at me and says, something troubling you? I said, yeah. Yeah. What is it? I said, I hate all of them. And I said, and I hate myself. And he said, do you love me? And I looked at him. And it just fell apart. I opened and I started to sob, absolutely sob. I said, I love you. I was sobbing, and he went and he sent for milk, and he was pouring milk down my throat, and he was patting me on the head. And I went through the whole catharsis and all of that. And then he came up to me, kind of nose to nose. He leaned over on his tucket, and he said, I told you to love everyone. I said, but you told me to tell the truth. And the truth is, I don't love everyone. And he leaned forward and he said to me, Ramdas, love everyone and tell the truth. At that moment, what I experienced were two things. First was I experienced a coffin in front of me, in which who I thought I was in the coffin. Who I thought I was somebody whose truth was that they didn't love everyone. And what he was describing to me was who I would be when I finished being who I thought I was. And the other thing was that at that moment I turned and I looked over at my fellow Guru Bhai, sisters and brothers, and I saw that at one level I had all this righteous indignation about them, but one little flip of consciousness, and I saw how incredibly beautiful each one of them was. and I love them so deeply. Jiao. And that was the teaching. And I realized that since that time, for 20 years, I have been learning that teaching. And when I realize is that when I don't feel that love for another human being, I hear Maharaji saying, Ram Dass, love everyone and tell the truth. Then he said to me afterwards, he said, Ram Dass, give up anger, and I'll help you. He didn't say, as I would say as a psychotherapist, let's work through your anger. He said, give up anger. And I took that as a spiritual charge, as a message. And that when I experienced anger, instead of trying to figure out why I experienced the anger, I would just start to do breathing and Ram and start to go into devotional practice and just let go, even though the same anger would come back up again. At one point, I was studying with a very beautiful man named Anagarika Munindra. He was a Theravadan Buddhist teacher. Lovely, lovely man. And I came to him one time, and I said to him, Munindraji, I am so angry, because I had so much anger in me for so many years, and keeping grudges. And he said, Ram Dass, don't hold on to it. It's just old karma running off. Your anger is just old karma running off. And one of the traps that I saw that I was caught in was the trap of righteousness that I used to justify my anger. But I saw that love freed me back into the ocean, and that anger didn't, and that I would rather be free than right. And that's a scary and big one. And that if somebody does an abhorrent action, I have to cultivate the capacity to, as Kabir said, and Maharaj used to quote, Kabir said, do what you do with another being, but never put them out of your heart. Do what you do with another being, but never put them out of your heart. That is a total prescription for social activists. Oppose, stand up, defy, confront. Do what you do with another person. You stop their action. You may have to imprison that person so that they don't hurt other people. You do what you must do, but you do it without closing your heart. And I don't mean the fraudulent, I didn't close my heart. I mean really. The quality of do what you do, but do it always in the presence of the beloved. There is an incredible poem by Thich Nhat Hanh, a very beautiful Vietnamese monk. Do not say that I'll depart tomorrow, because even today I still arrive. Look at me. I arrive in every second to be a bud on a spring branch, to be a tiny bird whose wings are still fragile, to be a caterpillar in the heart of a flower, to be a jewel hiding itself in a stone. I still arrive in order to laugh and to cry, in order to fear and to hope. The rhythm of my heart is the birth and death of all that are alive. I am the mayfly metamorphizing on the surface